Okay, cool. So welcome everybody to the room. Just to reset it, you are in the Women's Catalyst breakout session where we talk about important topics, and we are here to celebrate and empower diversity through building relationships and education and learning how we can be a better community together. Okay, so we have a special topic that we're talking about today, and it's all about community advising. And we learned a lot already. So I have a short video that me and Nadia recorded. It's about 5 minutes. I will share my screen. Oh man.
Are you new to Catalyst, or are you feeling inadequate, isolated, maybe a little left out? Like the first time you ever played kickball in grade school and got picked last to play, you didn't really know how, but you didn't want to ask a stupid question and look like a dummy. But then the first time you got hit in the face with the ball, you wish you would have.
Or maybe you have been here for a little bit and you're like, where can I find something new and exciting that I haven't tried yet? Something that's meaningful, something that's enjoyable, something that's flexible. We've got something for you.
You've come to the right place, my friend. Welcome to the Catalyst Corner with Dana and Nadia. And it's a corner because I'm in a corner. Or you could call it the Catalyst Cozy Nook. I don't know. Dana's office. Choose your pleasure over here. But today we learned a lot about community advising inside of the main session of Town Hall. If you weren't there, check it out. There'll be a link to a video, I'm sure, coming soon. And, you know, there was a lot talked over, but we really want to, in this session, pick out the nuggets, pick out the tiny morsels to help it go down a little bit better, help us digest what we learned, and understand how important being a community advisor is, how easy it is, and who better to tell us than Nadia, who is the Catalyst Circle representative for community advisors. So Nadia, tell us, what are your top 5 nuggets to all of the things that we learned earlier in the town hall? Tell us, what should we take away from this session today?
Well, I think it resonates with all of us that we want to do something meaningful. That's kind of how we get to Catalyst. And this is a very meaningful role. The purpose of this role is to assess proposals so that voters in the voting process can discern which of these proposals are really going to help us solve the challenge problems that are on the table for this fund. So a very meaningful role, very helpful, a big opportunity for you to make an impact. The second thing is very accessible. So even if you're newer, like we talked about, to Catalyst, or if you've been around for a while and maybe haven't thought about the role as an opportunity for you, this is a role that you can come into with relatively little experience in sort of the more complicated things in Catalyst, but still really make a difference just by registering and going through a little bit of a process to learn how to do the assessment. So we have lots of resources and tools to help you do that. So you don't need to feel intimidated by it. We have a whole guide with examples of how to do it well and what the criteria are. We've got online tutorials. So that's not what this is about today. You can find that information out and we'll have the links for you, but just take into account that you can do this, and right now is the time. So the third thing is very timely. The registration for this role has opened on Friday, this past Friday, and it will be open until March 23rd. And then you'll be able to start assessing actually this coming weekend, because the proposal date to submit proposals, the deadline, is coming up, and that's where we start. So the next thing is that it is a very flexible thing. So flexible both in time and financially.
Ooh.
Flexible in time because we only really do this role actively for a week. And that week is going between the period of proposing and the period of evaluating the proposal. So if you have a week of time and a little bit of space in there, you could do as little as a couple hours and do even as many as just 5 assessments and be helpful. Or some people do a whole bunch. They do a professional amount of work, like a work week's worth of work through that period of time. And some people do up to like 100. So you can do as many as you want, very scalable for your life and flexible in that way. And the last thing is that it is an incentivized role. So this is one of those great opportunities in Catalyst where you actually get paid for the work that you do, and you get paid based on the quality of your assessment. So very important to take the time to learn what is in the assessment guide so that you can feel prepared. Take time in the beginning to make sure that you know what is expected, because the better that you write your assessments, the more excellent assessments you get, the more you are compensated for those assessments that you've done. Excellent assessments, those ratings get you 3 times as much as a good assessment. So yeah, so you can really get the sense that the focus here is on quality, on doing thoughtful work that is your own work, and on being able to really make a difference in the process here that all of us are in this great experiment.
That's awesome, Nadia. I'm excited. I'm excited now. So one last question. So what does it mean to the proposers when I'm an assessor and I have given them a quality assessment? What does quality assessments mean to a proposer?
Yeah, quality assessment really validates the proposer's work. So the assessor has taken time to look at the proposal, to look at the challenge that it's within, and to understand, is this proposal going to move us forward in the direction that we're wanting to go? So it's very helpful for the proposer because it creates that sort of communication between the proposer and the voter ultimately, who's going to want to help make those decisions. It's kind of like, this role is kind of like if you moved into a new neighborhood, you'd want to like go outside and walk around and see who lives there and get a sense of what's going on around you. That's a little bit what the community advisor role feels like. It's very gratifying and it's really a lot of fun. And so once you set off, just let experience be your teacher. You will start to uncover things you didn't know were happening. You'll connect with people you didn't know were here. And it'll really deepen your experience with the Catalyst ecosystem overall.
That's amazing. That's awesome, Nadia. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. I'm excited. I don't know if anyone else is excited. I participated in Fund 7 as a proposer, and I was so overwhelmed with all the community advising chatter all over the ecosystem. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. But after hearing you pull out these nuggets, I'm ready to join in. I'm ready to do some assessments. I'm ready to get paid. And I'm ready to listen to the panel of OG community advisors that we have in our breakout session to continue this conversation and find out more about their experience. So stick around. Thank you, Nadia, for your time. Thank you, everybody.
And there we go.
I think that was the highest energy video I have ever seen. Very, very well done. Anyone who wasn't already considering being a community advisor will now for sure.
Good.
Congrats. Great energy in that video.
Thank you. Yeah, we kind of pulled that out this morning, like at an hour before the town hall started. So we had some other like hijinks in the beginning, but it ended up being too long. So thank you guys. So I just want to get right into, we have our panel. We got Allison here. Who else has been a community advisor? Joe, I think Maria too as well. But I think Allison, was there some few other women that were going to join us? I don't see them here. So,
no, but if Julie's here, she's certainly an OG as well.
Yeah. Anybody who's been a community advisor, we welcome you to the stage, and just to talk a little bit about your experience in being a community advisor and any tips or tricks. And then I know we're going to actually get into reviewing a couple proposals just so that we can get a feel for behind the scenes, we're going to go see the wizard and peek behind the curtain and see what it takes. So yeah, go ahead. And if all of the community advisors who are in this room right now, just share a little bit about your experience and any hacks or tips or tricks that you want to give to a proposer or anybody who's interested in becoming a community advisor.
Yeah, so should I start? And this is a kind of personal shout out, but it's so much fun to be here with Maria and Julie. We've been around since just about the beginning, and it's fun to be reconnected in this forum. So tips for being a community advisor. I think the first thing I would say is don't be shy. It certainly can seem intimidating, but having been a proposer and seen reviews and been a CA and written a lot of my own, there is no reason to be nervous or shy about jumping in, as long as you read the guidelines. I mean, it's important to take it seriously, But if you're worried about doing a good job, then you're almost certainly going to do a good job. So yeah, don't be nervous.
Cool. Thank you for that. Julie, what's your tip or what's your 2 cents?
Hey, hi everyone. So I yeah, if you want to be advisor, and you really should take your time and read through the guidelines, because it helps just upfront to level you up right away to a good or excellent feedback. And even and for me, it was like I always wanted to give more, like do more proposals, but at the end I ended up with my own proposals and many other stuff. So, but the ones I did, I just really dedicated some time and did it properly, just to be one of those that are just above of good, and I think that also eligibates you to become a veteran community advisor. So it's not necessarily about, if you want to practice about quantity, really focus on quality, and check out the challenges you want to address, because I tried the whole scale of super technical and super soft, and obviously from the technical perspective, since I'm not very into development itself from a technical perspective, at some point I found it quite hard to give a good assessment. So I really stepped away from that. So really find your spot where you can bring the most value to it. And I think I have seen that in the guidelines, and I think I still is like a gray zone. I don't know what other advisors would say, but if you really can put some expertise from your perspective, like from your subject matter perspective into this, although I think there are no mechanisms to really prove it, but it just adds up to the quality assessment you give, then you're really making a difference. But that's like the cherry on the top of the cake, I believe. Mm-hmm. But aspiring this is something I'm gonna challenge myself for the upcoming reviews. And
I have a question. How so reading the guidelines obviously seems like it's important. Is this like a big manual, or is it going to be easy? Because, you know, obviously a lot of people their time is very precious, and we're split between so many things these days. Like, is it time intensive to look over this guide, or is it going to be very easy? Okay.
I think it's easy, but I'm biased, obviously. But what I think is even more important is understanding the requirements that are set on the proposers. So if you just look at the items a proposer is requested to fill in, then you have a good understanding of the surrounding what you need to expect in terms of a good proposal. And on top of that, it's just a cascading logic that, you know, I mean, if you right away don't see a roadmap, or if you right away don't see KPIs, this is just a quick win. You just like that's very easy to identify. But there are other things between the lines that goes towards consistency that I think come with experience, maybe from both sides, of coming from a proposer perspective, but also from a CA perspective. That's my view.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I absolutely agree. It's not a huge effort to read the guide one time through. And I would recommend reading it thoroughly, but it's not the kind of thing you need to study and memorize, because what I did is I would have the proposal open in one tab. I would have the challenge brief open in another, because it's important to understand how the proposal fits into the challenge brief. And then I'd have the guide open in a third tab. And I would keep referring to the guide as I wrote my proposal. And actually that I continued that process. I never did get the guide thoroughly memorized. So the whole week of Fund 7 that I was writing proposals, I was continuing to refer back to the guide for each section, just to remind myself of what the criteria were for each section.
Okay. And I have two really important questions, I think. One, I'm trying to wrap my head around, so the more, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Say a proposer gets quality assessments. Does that put that proposer's proposal higher on the list when somebody goes into the challenge to vote? Now, is that proposal higher on the voting list visually because they've had more quality assessments? So people who don't have quality assessments on their proposal are lower ranked in the app, correct?
Yes, the proposals are ranked in order of according to the aggregated community advisor rating, but each proposal will have at least 3 final independent community advisor ratings. And then as part of the veteran community advisor process, all of the reviews will be scrutinized, and only the ones that pass will remain. So it's not like your review alone can determine the final ranking of the proposal, but the proposals in the voting app are ordered based on the aggregated rating from all the community advisors.
So that's why we need more community advisors giving quality assessments. And especially, I mean, whether you're a proposer, like you want to tell your friends, you need to become a community advisor and like start become a quality community advisor, you know what I mean? And I just think that that's a marketing way to get more people into the space doing community advising. So you're not just trying to get votes on your proposal, you're trying to get quality assessments on your proposal. But you don't have to do that. I mean, it's kind of like, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think I just want to make sure that this is clear, because it comes to me like a mixing up. One thing is the rating that turns out of a proposal, right? Out of an assessment. And the quality of the assessment is actually something important to improve your proposal and therewith your rating.
Right.
But the quality of the CA does not push your ranking, right? But at the end, it's indirect feedback for the proposal to do a better job next time and achieve a higher rating. And that consequently, indirectly, could pump you up. Like this is a cascading, a consequence out of something. Those are two things, yeah.
We have a question from, it says, Megan says, if you had to pick one, would you think it's wiser to go find proposals with no or very few assessments? She said she doesn't know if it's a quick and easy way to see how many assessments have been done, or stick with fields that you understand well. Is it the priority on boosting up numbers of assessments for lesser assessed proposals, or to stick with what you're more familiar or an expert on?
So to a certain extent, the answer to that is both. So I think on the one hand, every proposal should be written for a general audience. On the other hand, if you don't know a lot about self-sovereign identity, for example, which is my field, it may be hard to identify whether or not a project is feasible. So I think and nobody can review all of the proposals. So picking an area where you feel comfortable and quite frankly interested, I think is helpful. Having said that, it is important that every proposal get a minimum number of quality ratings. And there is a tool, a very easy tool that AIM has on their website that allows you to just click on the tool, and you can even select, I think, a specific challenge, and it'll take you directly to proposals that have low or no assessments already.
Okay.
Give me a second. I'll see if I can get that tool up.
Yeah, and maybe to add something, and that's the whole process improvement thing itself, because we have seen in the past that you might have a proposal that has 10
thank you, Naveed. Sorry.
That has 10 reviews, but maybe 80% of this we're gonna discard afterwards because it's just giving ratings, right? So the indicator of already released evaluations can be misleading because we still have a kind of important number of ratings that are just not sufficient good ratings, so they will be discarded, and also ones that just have a rating on it, and it's just because people jump on the boat without having those sessions, without reading the guideline, without reading really being a valuable contributor to this. Yeah.
Okay.
And there is a little bit of complexity when it comes to getting paid. So it's
You
an
hit
interesting.
that was going to be my next thing. I'm like, let's talk about the money. How much we get paid? What are we doing? Go ahead.
So the big picture is there's a bit of complexity because there's a set budget and we don't know how many reviews are going to be written. And so if one proposal gets 50,000 reviews, not all of those reviews are going to get paid. So for proposals that truly have a huge number of reviews, there's a lottery process to pick the proposals that get the reward. In practice, the reality has been that there's more of a problem to get enough quality reviews for every proposal. There hasn't been a huge issue with lots of people writing reviews that don't get paid. But from a strict self-interest perspective, it is in your best interest to find proposals that don't have a lot of reviews already and review them so that you can ensure that you get paid.
Now,
And
I was gonna go ahead, finish your thought.
I was going to say, but the mathematics of the way that it works out, and just given probabilities, if you write a decent number, if you write reviews, the odds are extremely good that you will get paid. I've never felt like, oh, I did all this work and I didn't earn anything.
Yeah. Now, one thing Nadia had mentioned to me, she was saying like, well, in the video too, she said quality proposals you actually get paid more for the more quality proposal you put. And she was saying something like $100 sometimes for the quality proposals, and then, like 50 going down. I don't know if it's a static number or what those numbers look like, but so there's like amounts you get awarded for the types of assessments you give, and then you can be entered into a larger lottery, which awards you even more money if you end up getting chosen. Is that correct?
Kind of. So basically, there are three two different kinds of ratings. CAs give proposals ratings, but then VCAs rate the reviews, and every review is rated either excellent or good, or it's filtered out, which means it just doesn't count. And if you have a review that's filtered out, you don't get paid for that. And if you have a review that's excellent, I think the number is you get 3 times the payment as a review that's good. And then there's an additional bonus that you get if you write a review of a project that ends up being funded. And there's actually, Naveed is here, there's a lot of debate about whether that is a good idea or not, but that is the system that we have at the moment.
Naveed, if you wanna add to that, please do.
Yeah, so I think that it's raised. So I've been CAing since Fund 3, I think, or Fund 4, can't remember. But I think the best advice I can give is just to keep it simple. If you're writing, read the guide. Stick to one challenge. Start with one challenge. Do it to death, because you'll start to understand the challenge. If it's got 20 proposals in, you may do 5 of them. You'll start to understand how they fit together. And if you just think about your challenge as that wall, how do all these different bricks fit into that wall, and are they actually fitting? So you start to assess, write your assessments based on understanding that challenge in detail and working out how that whole ecosystem is trying to fit together. You'll then start to write good and quality assessment. Sorry, get terminology right. And then worrying about whether it's going to get funded or not. The idea of the bonus system is if an assessment you write is for a proposal that gets funded eventually, you get paid a bit more. So the idea was we shouldn't focus on the junk proposals, right? If somebody's written a pretty draft proposal and it's not worth the paper it's written on, I can happily write an assessment on it, get myself $50, great.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine, which people do, right? That's a strategy some people will employ. They'll just go through finding all the rubbish, because they're very easy to say this is rubbish. But looking for the ones that are actually going to add some value to the ecosystem, right? If somebody's producing a product or a design or putting a proposal for that's actually going to make a difference, then those are the ones that ideally we want to have more assessments on, so we get a better view of the community, better view of what the community thinks, and improve that proposal going forward.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you. I see June joined us too here. Hey guys, so just because I'm gonna jump off in a minute, and I'm gonna let Allison, you want to take over for me, or Juliana, do you want to? Allison, do you want to lead the room discussion? I'm going to put the links to the proposals that you guys will review in the chat, if you don't have them already, just because I gotta kick out of here, and I'm so disappointed because town hall went over today, and I wasn't ready for that. So are you cool with that, Allison?
I am, but certainly happy to defer to Juliana if you'd prefer to.
No, Allison, go ahead.
Go.
Yeah, because I'd like to hear something from June as well. But yeah, continue to talk about the experiences, and then you guys can determine when you start going over the do like a mock proposal assessment. I'm just going to stick them in the chat just so that you guys have them though.
Yeah, so June, welcome. I'm not sure how much you heard, but we're just basically giving our perspective and tips on what it's like to be a CA. So is there anything that you wanted to add?
I mean, I thought I was in the Nadia room, so I just realized now that I'm supposed to be in this room. Yeah. So
I was
just quickly. Yeah.
I was confused about that too, actually.
Yeah, just quickly then, I just want to say that the CA role is actually the best entry position to get involved in the catalyst process. And I'm myself, I still have a few questions on the CA, whether that you can be a CA in the challenge that you set, whether you can do the CA on the challenge setting or not, if you are the one who proposed in the challenge setting, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. So in Fund 7, you could be a challenge team member for the challenge and be a CA of proposals in that challenge. And you could be a challenge team member and you could be a proposer in the same challenge. But you could not be, and this is true for Fund 8, you cannot be a CA and a proposer in the same challenge.
Okay.
So that's, as far as I know, and anyone feel free to correct me, but I'm fairly confident that that's the only hard and fast rule. You can't be a CA and a proposer in the same challenge. So I have proposals across a number of challenges, either as a lead proposer or a co-proposer. And so I won't CA in those challenges. I'll look for another challenge to do my work in.
What about the challenge setting then? Because I propose in the challenge setting as well to,
So just to clarify what you mean you have a challenge setting proposal for Fund 9 in the Fund 8?
Yes, that's right.
So then you can't assess other challenge setting proposals.
So I can, right?
You cannot.
Okay, all right.
You cannot assess other proposals in the Fund 9 challenge setting proposal challenge.
Okay, sure. That's that's the question that I got from I mean myself and also another proposer in the challenge setting. So this is just want to ensure that we, yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks a lot for Alison for confirming that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're welcome. And
Yes.
actually, that I'm glad you raised that, because it's something that comes up a lot, which is that it's a bit confusing. In every fund, we have a challenge to set the challenges for the next fund. So we're in Fund 8. So one of the Fund 8 challenges is people proposing what the challenges should be for Fund 9. And those proposals, the challenge setting proposals, really do require a different set of criteria that CAs should be looking for when they assess those challenges. So if you're new to being a CA, one piece of advice I would give is to stay away from the challenge setting challenges. That one's a little bit maybe hard to wrap your head around if you're new to Catalyst and new to being a CA. Tommy, were you going to say something? I saw your hand up briefly.
No, you clarified already.
Okay, thanks. And I see a long. Is that a question, Megan? Should I read this? The guide says, if you find a project that you wish to collaborate on, you have to change your own standing point from a CA to a proposer. The integrity of the system lies in the hands of each of us and our decisions. If we see a proposal that we're like, oh, neat, I like this idea, does that mean we need to remove ourselves from assessing? Or is it ethical, acceptable to still assess proposals that we see that we think are really aligned with our values? So, yeah, so I think the question is, if the proposal that you're looking at gets funded, are you going to receive part of that funding personally? So, and if you are, then don't assess any challenges, any proposals in that challenge. If you're not, if you like it, if it's aligned to you, if you like the team, you may want to collaborate with them in some other way down the road. I mean, that's fine. We're a small community. We all know each other, or we don't all know each other. A lot of us know each other. We're connected in many different ways, in many different roles. But I think from my perspective, the integrity is with the money. Are you going to receive money from that proposal if it's funded? So for example, if you find a proposal and you're really excited and you reach out to the team and say, hey, I want to join you, and they say, sure, come on board. If we're funded, you take on this role, we'll pay you 1,000 ADA. Now you are a proposer. And in that case, you cannot assess proposals in that challenge. But if you're not part of the proposal team, meaning that you are going to receive funds and do work with them, then you're not a proposer and you can assess proposals. But I think it would be hard. I mean, I think there'd be an integrity issue to switch mid-fund from being a CA to a proposer if you've already assessed proposals if you've already assessed proposals in the challenge. So on the 10th one in a particular challenge, you find a team that you want to join. I mean, I think that would be problematic. And I would just say, wait until the next fund. Which, I mean, just to share my personal story, that's actually what I did. Again, I said self-sovereign identity, decentralized identity is really my focus. And I didn't put a proposal in Fund 7 deliberately because I wanted to be a CA. And so I really dove deeply into the proposals in the self-sovereign identity challenge and did a lot of CA work. And now in Fund 8, I've partnered with some of the people whose proposals I reviewed, and I had my own proposals out, but it was separated by funds. Hi, Nadia. So we lost Dana, which unfortunately means that I'm talking too much, both in an attempt to facilitate and speak to my own experience.
Uh-oh.
And
well, here I am. Maybe I'm in at the right moment. So we can help with that a little bit.
I think that what I was going to say was, number one, do we have more questions from anyone who's here. Megan, you're asking great questions. Thank you. Any other questions?
So I joined a bit late or dropped off. Did you cover anything about the number of assessments that a CA should go through?
The number of assessments that a CA
How many assessments should a CA do? One?
No, we didn't. Feel free to speak to that. I mean, we did a little bit, but feel free to
yes,
give your perspective.
The answer is very simple. It's as many as you like. So one is sufficient. Quality is better than quantity, I think, which is probably, I think we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
And maybe I think if we were going to go into the looking at an actual proposal, there's probably some more discussion about how much you should write and what sort of language you should use and what you should actually be looking for. But that might be more of a practical thing on the assessment.
Yep, and that's a great segue. I think that we can probably go there next, unless there are any other questions. And I would say this is my general advice, but specifically directed at Megan. If you're worried about doing it right, that almost certainly means you're going to do it well, because you'll take the steps that you need to do it right. So I think you should go for it.
I agree. Just to give my personal experience. So I think I tried to assess something in Fund 3. I had no clue what I was doing. I think I wrote half an assessment and then I gave up and I just watched for a couple of months to work out what the hell was going on. And then from Fund 4, 5, 6, 7, it's become a lot more straightforward. But this is all I do. I deliberately restrict myself to being a CA. So trying to get involved, kind of get dragged in a little bit to a challenge team and possibly one or two other groups, and potentially going to propose something. But I've been trying very hard not to, because this is what I like doing, and I have another full-time job. Not always straightforward. My daughter also does this. She writes 70% excellent assessments. She's got a 1-year-old and 3-year-old, and a full-time job in a very high-powered finance job. And she does every 3 months. She gets a WhatsApp from me saying, "Are you ready to go?" Ready to go. And she'll write 10 assessments, and it's logical, right? This is what she does in her day job. She can do it in the evenings after putting the kids to bed, or on the weekends, and she consistently gets 70% excellent. So it puts me to shame. But that's my standard for how I think women should be involved in Catalyst and CA work. Logic and straightforward thinking.
That's awesome. And Megan, you asked another great question. What can you do ahead to prepare? First of all, for this fund, not much, because the CA assessment period opens tomorrow. But in general, if you're preparing ahead of time during the proposal writing phase, a couple of things to think about. One, I really liked what Naveed said earlier about picking one challenge that resonates with you and really getting to know that challenge. So reading the challenge brief and starting to read the proposals and writing comments to the proposers of questions you have or things that you're thinking about, that really means a lot to the proposers if there are comments going in during the writing phase. So that's not an assessment. You can put a comment in idea scale and it's public and it's attached to your name. But it's good feedback for the proposer to have. The only thing I would caution you is even though proposals are supposed to be finalized before the deadline, a lot of proposers, and myself included, don't manage to actually get the proposal completely finalized before the deadline. So you may go look at a proposal in idea scale and think, wow, this is missing a budget and a roadmap and KPIs, and there's no information about the team. And that's because the proposer is lazy and hasn't gotten it in there yet. And that might all change before the deadline. And a lot of teams will collaborate using Google Documents. And so they're making edits and going back and forth about text, and that's all offline. And then suddenly, right before the deadline, again, not to, mention any personal experiences here, but the proposal may change dramatically shortly before the deadline as all of those offline edits get uploaded. So on the one hand, I think it's good to prepare and start reading and understand the challenge and start reading other proposals and think about where you want to be, but also know that the proposals might look dramatically different between when you look at them during the writing phase and when you look at them during the assessment phase.
I'll just chime in here, Allison, having been in the other room, not sure when you lost Dana, but you guys did the video in the beginning?
The video was fantastic. Most energetic video I have ever seen. I think that we recruited 1 million new CAs as a result of the video.
I hope so. So I just put in the chat here. Thank you, Tommy, for pointing that out. So we have slides here that were to go with that. And there are links in these slides that will give you and sorry if I'm repeating, so just to have said it, there's the guide, which you absolutely want to have read beforehand. So that is an enormous point. You want, even if you've been a CA before and you're doing a refresher, you want to read that to prepare yourself. There is the criteria in there. It's very important also that you understand what the rating scale is. So there's a star rating scale that you can use, and it's easy to think of 1 to 5 stars as like, on a scale of 1 to 10, that was like an 8. But you want to really understand that those are how much you agree with with that portion of the proposal meeting the criteria of the grading criteria. So do you highly agree that it has met the impact criteria? Do you feel neutral, or do you not agree at all? These are important parts to understand. And then just make sure that you create a thoughtful response that is your own, that you take some time to really digest. One of the things that's helpful to think about, Phil and I were talking in the Catalyst School workshop about how both of us, when we started being a CA, we used the CA tool, and it just prompted us with different proposals. And so we ended up proposing across different challenges. But when you go to look at a proposal, if you do it that way, make sure you really read the challenge, because you can't really assess the potential impact, without reading that challenge first. It's very important. So look at the challenge first, digest the challenge, and then another approach, which is one you might adopt after doing it that way the first time, if you do it like he and I did it, and I'm sure other people. If you adopt the approach of reading the channel and then reading the challenge and then looking at the proposals within that, that'll help you compare the different proposals, but also you'll be able to keep in mind what the challenge criteria is there. So very important and helpful. And I would say, Oliver, these questions all that we're talking about here would also be in the workshop. They got talked about a good amount. So this is a good space for you to ask questions, but I think that you should be able to also find it there. So you'll be able to look at this one again, and you'll be able to look at the workshops, and that should be really comprehensive between the workshops, doing an answer town hall like this, and preparing yourself using the Catalyst School links. So those are a couple things to just keep in mind. But the more you prepare yourself beforehand, the more successful you're going to be, because the excellent quality assessments, like to Naveed's point, those are going to be 3 times as valuable to you in terms of the incentives as good will be. So these are important parts of getting yourself prepared, especially if it's your first time.
Yeah, and if I could just share one more thing too, because somebody I respect a huge amount in the community, and a very veteran CA shared this, and it made me feel a lot better, which is that a number of my reviews, a number of my reviews were filtered out. So I think I'm a pretty decent CA. I read the guide a lot. Some of mine were excellent, some of mine were good, and some of them were filtered out. So I learned some things, and I also think the process just isn't perfect. We're all learning. And so I would say don't let fear of not doing it right stop you from participating. It may happen that reviews are filtered out for one reason or another. That is part of the Catalyst process of us all learning how it works. Do comments remain open even? Yes. Well, comments remain visible after the proposals close. And no proposers cannot comment and chat back and forth with assessors during assessment week. So everything is frozen in idea scale as of the deadline tomorrow. Comments do close the same date time that proposing closes. So they're part of the proposal record in idea scale. This fund was a little bit different because we changed the timeline, but in this fund, the proposal writing and comment period were all open for the same, I guess it was total of three weeks. In past funds, the proposals were open, then the proposals were locked and it was time for commenting. And then the proposals were opened back up again for response. But this time the proposals and commenting was all open for the whole proposal writing phase.
Just a comment on the comment. So you should consider the comments as part of the proposal.
Yeah.
So read the proposal, read the comments, because there's lots of backwards and forwards going on, and a lot of the questions you might have may already have been answered.
And attachments.
Attachments, which we all miss, and links that don't work.
Yeah, and one other minor thing, maybe it's fixed this time around, but the user experience in the idea scale platform is not great. So you have to write something in all three sections, impact, feasibility, and auditability, for your review to be counted. If you only write two and you don't write anything in the third, the whole review gets thrown out. And idea scale is not great about giving you the feedback that you've submitted it at all. So you have to make sure yourself that the text is in there. Maybe that'll be improved this go round, but it's a little bit disconcerting to not get the feedback that, hey, good job, you put all three sections in and your review was accepted.
I would like to, I would like to add about the experience that you mentioned, Alison, that about the idea scale. Because the idea scale kick off with some updates, so some proposal wouldn't be able to put the picture along with the text. So if you are CA, just you have to also notice at the attachment at the bottom of the proposal, not only reading the proposal, and because some early proposal that update the proposal before the idea scale update, you will see the picture along with the text. But for someone who update later, the proposal who update quite late in the process, all the picture will be at the bottom of the proposal. Yes, so just want to add that bit, to look for the diagram and chart at the bottom of the proposal. Yep.
Yeah. Should we move? Go ahead.
Actually can be quite off-putting, especially when you're new. You suddenly see a proposal, it's got pages and pages, and you're scrolling up and down and not got a clue, and suddenly there's a YouTube video, and then there's a PDF, and then there's a white paper, and then there's another attachment. And it's like, what the hell, move on, let's find something simpler. Which comes back to initially stick to what you know, what the subject area you're comfortable with, the challenge you're comfortable with, because then it won't be so boring. It might be easier to assess.
Yeah, you don't have to be new for that. It happened to me just a couple of months ago that there was an amazing proposal and I spent like an hour reading it. And after that, I was like, I wouldn't do justice assessing this, so I'll just drop it. They were too smart for me.
Tell me, I can't imagine anyone being too smart for you. I don't think that's possible.
I tend to just how many words I have to Google when I read it. If I have to Google more than 5 of their words, then it's far too academic for me.
You had some agenda before we came here and started disturbing.
Well, I think the next item on the agenda but maybe Nadia, do you want to take it from here? Is to bring up a sample proposal or a real proposal and do a practice kind of group assessment of it. Is that the right idea?
Does the group want to do that? Does that feel like it would be helpful? Okay, Meg, we got something good. And we have some real CA OGs in this room too. So I really invite like group collaboration and participation about what is seen, because we'll all maybe see different stuff. So all of you have, let me put the CA guide here in the chat, so we all go directly to that. Sorry for taking a minute here. So here's the chat of the guide. So I'll just open this up first and we can take a look at this so we can understand the criteria. So let's just walk through the guide for a moment. And I want to encourage, like, don't do a quick walk through the guide if you're starting out. This is, you want to read the whole thing, but for the sake of this this session, I will let's see, share my screen here. Okay, so when you look at the community advisor guide, it's going to give you pretty much everything you need to get going. Guiding principles, you're going to understand the scoring criteria. This is really important. This is for regular challenges. So this is for proposals. This scoring criteria here is for community challenge setting. So you'll see when you come to the challenges in idea scale that we're going to have Fund 9 challenge setting. This is the suggestion of, thank you, Tommy. This is the suggestion of challenges for the coming fund, not proposals toward this fund. So you want to take note of that. I won't go too much into that because it's really outlined here, but you want to go through the scoring criteria for the either assessing a proposal in this area or if you're assessing challenges in this area. And then definitions of a quality assessment. So there's some examples in here of those the assessments from Fund 7 that were done well. And they are assessments that were done both on proposals that were rated highly and also on proposals that didn't receive much of a high rating. So that's an important thing to discern as you read, because you might come across proposals that you think, geez, I don't really think this is going to work, but I want to write a good quality assessment and make sure that I do that well. You want to think about, it's a lot, I think, easier to review a proposal that is really you're planning to rate a 5 than it is maybe to rate 1 or 2, just because you want to substantiate why you're doing that. It does affect the proposer a lot. And as was mentioned in the town hall, this is a person who's spent time thinking about this. So you want to really take that respectfully. And then we have some examples of inadequate assessments and why in the guide, and then what happens afterwards. So that's a little bit of a walk through the guides. I'll just skim down here and we can look at this. The 3 criteria are impact, feasibility, and clarity auditability. So impact says, is this proposal addressing what the challenge asks for? And like we said, it's important to read the challenge first, because then you can address that. Is this going to make an impact in a significant way against what the challenge is requiring? The second thing, feasibility. Feasibility says, is it possible that this team and using this method that they're proposing is going to accomplish this? Is this something that we think is going to be done? And then third, clarity auditability. How is the team itself going to assess whether or not they've accomplished their goal? And how are we going to hold them accountable for having been funded towards an effort? So all of these 3 things are that is how the proposer also is completing the proposal. So you'll see that the proposal is set with the same alignment. So you should be able to really identify where they are working to prove for these areas. Okay, so I'll just skim down here, make sure you read everything here. Ultimately, just make sure that you do a good job thinking about this and evaluating it critically, and then do your own work, provide your own content. Think about what you can provide for the voter. Keep your voter in mind, because the voter is going to come along and use your assessment to decide if this proposal is a high quality one or not. So you'll see here in the impact, these are suggested characteristics of an impactful proposal. So it identifies a problem within the challenge which needs to be solved. The proposal clearly articulates how it will add to the value of the ecosystem. Key metrics and goals of the proposal align with the outlined challenge settings, and then proposal is able to scale and address future challenges. So here's the part about the stars. So you give this 1 star, it means that you strongly disagree with these characteristics as they pertain to the proposal. 2 is you disagree. So 1's like, whoa, no way. 2 is like, not really, don't think this is a good idea, especially compared to other ones. Neutral is, neutral. Then you agree or you really agree. So where you fall on this scale here is how you should choose the star rating. Not in like an intuitive sense, but very specifically. Feasibility. Okay, any questions on that? Any questions on that so far? I'll make some space for. Okay, good. So next we got feasibility. This proposal has considered these criteria. So there is evidence of the skills necessary. You can identify the team and why they're qualified. There's a budget. The budget's reasonable. Is there additional funding needed? Does the proposal offer a realistic timeline? And how it's going to be done? Explain technical aspects, and then consider challenges and risks relevant to successful implementation. Okay, so strongly agree, or strongly disagree to strongly agree, same thing. And then clarity and auditability. So you should have here a roadmap with milestones, metrics and KPIs, clear and understandable description, clear and understandable solution. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. I'll just point this out for you to review as well. So I'm going to skip, this is for the challenge setting, community challenge setting as well. So if you review in the Fund 9 challenge setting section, make sure that you have done the same thing here as well. Here's some definitions of the quality assessment. And I want to point out down here that you have some examples. Okay, where are the examples? Oh, maybe we just went with the link here. Sorry for the scrolling here. All right, so here's some examples of inadequate assessments. Proposal is fishing for funds, irrelevant, missing the point. You'll see here some things that don't really add value. You want to add value to the response. Or it's unconstructive, maybe it's just negative. We don't like how it was written. These kind of statements, not very helpful. You want to be constructive even in your negative feedback. And then there's some aspects of what not to do here. And then here it is, the high quality assessments. So these are positive ones where you can actually understand what has been done in the past that has worked. So you got a rating of, this is on this particular proposal. Here is the link to it. And then here, this person wrote an excellent assessment that gave a rating of 5 for the impact. That means they strongly agreed that this proposal met the criteria of the challenge. Okay, and then same thing for feasibility, same thing. So I encourage you to read these here, because this is what we're about to do. So if you get stuck along the way, or you feel like I'm not really sure if I'm on the right track and if what I'm producing is good, these are really nice to look at. And then you have 11 of the highest rated assessments from Fund 7. And then lastly, here's what not to do. So here's what we're not going to say. 1-word answers or short answers, or things that don't give enough explanation of why you've decided on that. Okay, helpful? Any questions there? I have not been looking at the chat, so you guys are on top of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, probably just as well you're not looking at the chat, Nadia.
Why?
So I'm just
Wait, what happened?
nothing. I'm being a bit silly.
Oh, no, I just want to say hi, I'm back.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see you guys are still meeting. Very cool. So is this, I am in the chat right now, but it only has one message in there. Can you repost the link to this guide in there?
Yes, I can. Tommy's got us in here.
I
Is
missed-
it nonsensical chat stuff, or is that why you're saying that?
Yes, that it was lighthearted and fun is more what I meant.
Oh,
Okay, all right. It's not
At
about
least it
pineapples, is it?
inappropriate and risque. That's
No.
Okay.
Dana, you're just in time. So we just went through the guide so that everyone can take a look here. And this will be helpful in the future too. Hopefully, as people come to this, they'll benefit from looking at an example. So I hopped in your seat here for a minute to just go through this, but maybe you want to take over right now because you're here at the exact right moment. And shall we, Allison, it might be nice to do your proposal link because you could be here to hear it and give feedback. Is that something you'd want to do?
Yeah, I would love that.
As a proposer, then you could say, I'm not sure what the proposer meant, and we could think about it that way. It would be sort of like a live opportunity. So I'll stop my share. Do you, Dana, back up you go. So do you want to share your screen and set that up, and then we can go through it?
Sure. I didn't need to be. I was just saying hi that I'm back, but sure, I can do that. Let me share my screen here. Share. And bam. And nope, that's mine. You know what? I don't have it up. So let's see.
Let me see if I have it right here. Handy. Allison, can you just give her the link in the chat?
Yeah. You know what? I changed my mind about which one. I'm gonna give the one that's shorter, given the time that we already have here. So this one is both shorter and it's complete. That's the other. The other two don't exactly have a budget.
Well, that would have been an easy assessment then.
Actually, yeah, I should have. Now that I said that, I should have done that. Would have been a little test to see if anybody
caught it, right?
Got it.
Okay, go ahead, Dana.
Okay.
So it might be nice for you as you're watching to have the guide up, and then you can give it some help.
Oops, sorry about that. No.
Yeah, great point, Tommy. So I'll say it for the recording. So insight for length, this is also in the guide. And this is actually based on previous assessments as well. So 2,000 to 4,000 characters or 300 to 700 words across is like a general good average rule of, not rule, but guideline for you. So it's not a rule. If you write a lot of longer ones do well, and the shorter ones also do well. So, but just to keep in mind as you're writing, and then making sure that you've addressed the criteria in however long you've made it. Okay.
Okay, self-sovereign identity, exciting. And Allison is leading the charge. Okay. All right, I wasn't here for the guide, but so how do we want to do this? You want me to just read through, or?
So let's get started. So we have the problem statement up here. So the challenge, Allison, talk a little bit about the challenge of what the challenge asks here, since you're familiar with it, and we don't have time maybe in this session to read everything, but what is this challenge asking?
Can you zoom in a bit?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So so self-sovereign identity is a growing field, and there are a number of blockchains that have the technological capability to deliver a decentralized identity solution. And the challenge is about how to promote Cardano's specific technology globally.
Okay, great. So probably before we would go into this, I think if we want to really go ahead, Naveed.
Nadia, can I just butt in a second? I had to pop out for a few minutes, but I'm just thinking, is it appropriate for us to be looking at a fund date proposal?
Okay, good point. We can look at a Fund 7 one.
The guidelines for CAs is your work should be independent of other CAs. So we should be collaborating and talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Okay, great. So why don't we go into the guide itself has some, let's use one of the assessments from the guide and we can see how we do there.
Or we can, is there a way to get to Fund 7?
Yeah, so the guide has, so if you go to the assessment guide there in the middle, we have links to the right there, the tab. So come down here and keep going down until we get to some of the assessments that were already done.
But Naveed, that actually, you just made a really good point. I hadn't thought of that when we were talking about this before. But could you say that again, because it's an important point around independence.
Yeah, I think there's a note in the guide which says your assessment should be done independent of other CAs.
Is this the assessment example? This one right here?
Yep, you can just choose this one.
And so I think just to differentiate, if there's a question about process or technology or general confusion about how things work, dropping questions in real time into the CA Telegram is an excellent way to get immediate feedback. I've had questions about things and somebody responded probably within seconds, but it's not appropriate to ask for specific advice about writing an assessment about a specific proposal. That does need to be done completely independently, and CAs should not be talking to each other about, hey, what did you rate this, or what do you think about this? That is actually not part of the process, and so that's really an excellent point, Naveed.
That's very interesting, because I mean, I don't know, because that stops people from then getting help. No, I mean, that's the first thing that comes into my mind, because a lot of the people that I have gone to for help for my proposals up to this point have been CAs, like behind the scenes, you know what I mean? So if I become a CA, then I cannot collaborate or talk to any other CAs in the future.
You can get help, but you have to write your own review independently. So for example, it's okay to say, I'm not sure I understand what it means to be auditable, or I don't understand how to do X, Y, or Z in idea scale. But at least how things stand today, and there's been some research and discussion specifically from DOOR that maybe we should be collaborating more, but the way the process is today, and Naveed's right, it's in the guide. You can't, for example, go to somebody and say, I'm assessing the skateboard social staking platform. I'm debating between a 4 and a 5. What did you think? Or,
okay, I see, because that was different from what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you're telling me that with my own proposal, I can't go get help from another CA or get their opinion, but that's not what this is. Okay.
No. It's every CA has to work independently. And also I think it's also fair to say, as a CA, if you don't understand something in the proposal, it would not be appropriate to ask another CA how they understood it.
Yeah, so this is just for assessments. This isn't for your personal proposal building. That's the difference between my question I was asking and what you're talking about. Now I understand. It's just, you can't go ask for help on an assessment, but you can on your own proposal building.
Yeah,
yes.
Correct.
Okay.
But equally, as an assessor, so if you're going through writing an assessment, you don't understand something, it's still actively encouraged to go and ask the proposer. They're all linked on here. Most of them have real names, so you can generally find them. But you can always send them a private message and say, I didn't understand what the proposal was all about.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is
the layout of this is going to look a little different because of how the sort of the starter template for the proposals in Fund 8 look. So it's going to have a little bit different of a layout compared to what you're going to see in Fund 8. And that was done intentionally so that assessors and proposers had a little bit more of a continuity in looking at how the information is being provided and how it's being digested. So
You know-
there's a little, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you know what? I went here because the one person that I wanted to, if we want to do, here's somebody that's not on this call, he's not a CA. If we want to look at this proposal.
It's not about that, it's about collaborating on the CA work. But perhaps
I see what you're saying. Okay.
But perhaps we can look at it. So when you'll see, guys, when you go to the proposals, you'll see it'll have impact, and then it'll have feasibility, it'll have auditability. So I'm just pointing that out to say, if you refer back to this doesn't have that same ding kind of organization that it will in Fund 8, which is very positive. Yeah.
Okay, so we just want to go through the problem statements and the solution and see if there's any issues there, or how do you want to tackle this elephant, eating it one bite at a time?
I think that the best way, I don't know if it's pouring through this here, because you do have an example of how it's been addressed. I think as a problem exercise, we've looked at the actual criteria here, and we're looking at where it's laid out in the proposal, and we've talked a lot about the process. So we'd come to stake board, we would look at the Global Sustainable Independent SBO's challenge first, we'd really evaluate that, and then we would come to the proposal itself, and maybe using the guide side by side. It'd be interesting to hear from those on the call here who are doing a lot of assessments or who have done a lot of assessments, to hear what your process is. But when you come here, you want to look at the problem statement, see if it impacts the challenge, and you're understanding what the solution to the problem is that this person is suggesting, or this team, and then the relevant experience. And from there, you're going to start into the impact section. You might take impact, look at the impact criteria. You might write that. You might read the whole thing at once and read it back. To John's point in the chat, you want to make sure you look at any attachments, slides that are included. Some people have videos. People are going to have all kinds of materials here. You want to take that all into consideration as you're thinking about it, and then make sure that when you start to write the assessment, you are really speaking to what the criteria is. You don't need, and this will help you with length as well, you don't need things like, I really loved reading this proposal. So you want to make sure that each of the things that you contribute actually add value and are specific to the content that you're reviewing.
Another just minor tip I would give about my process, I wrote all of my assessments in a Word document, and then I copied and pasted them into IdeaScale, partly because IdeaScale is just glitchy, and that helped me ensure that I didn't lose any work. But also it was really helpful because after the fact, trying to sort through the spreadsheets and find feedback, it was really helpful for me to have a copy of the reviews that I wrote, so I could look at what I'd done and get feedback on my own assessments.
The Catalyst workshops, the recordings, will also walk you through, there are several tools that were designed to make this process easier. One of them is the CA tool, and that is built to help you filter and look at different assessments. It will filter so that you are pulling up initially the assessments or the proposals with the fewest assessments. We try to get to 5 for each as a minimum, so that's the initial goal. And then, so you'll get it by where the most need is. And you also can use that to actually write the content and save it. But then it's really important to note that it is only a submitted assessment if you've assessed it if you've submitted it in IdeaScale. So what will happen when the assessment periods opens is you'll be able to come to the bottom here, and you'll have those fields to be able to submit, and you'll have the star rating to be able to submit, which is not live right now, so it's tough to demonstrate. But doing it in the tool beforehand will let you have sort of a record of what you've done, because once you submit it in IdeaScale, the assessment is submitted, and you want to, as Allison has said, either have kept track of it in some place. The tool is very helpful, and it's built to serve that need there. So you can see with this one as compared to current ones that It's a little bit more
Like this
proposal.
section, yeah, like key performance indicators would have its own section.
Yeah, you'll see those in each of the impact, feasibility, and auditability sections. The same component should be there per how the new template is for proposers, and that aligns with what the CA also has.
This is another minor point too. When I was first starting to be a CA, I spent a huge amount of time reading all the chats in the CA Telegram channel, which was a lot of fun. But I finally realized I was spending a lot of time reading chats in the CA Telegram channel and not a lot of time writing assessments. And there comes a point where it's not necessary to read every single chat, every single comment in the CA Telegram channel.
Yeah.
And this up here in the website is the same. It's ideas about team workflow. So in order to find out what the challenge is, that's the about, right?
Yes.
That's right. Yep. Great point.
Okay.
And then you can also click on ideas, and this might be a nice way to do it. I think I'm going to do it this way. I like doing it popcorn style too, but you'll end up reading a lot more challenges. There's a lot more information to take in. If you plan to do a lot and you're going to do them across challenges, it might be a nice approach to pick a challenge. And if you click on ideas there, Dana, you'll be able to see everything that was submitted, and you could literally go through all the proposals in one challenge area and then move to a different challenge area. That might keep it clearer and more organized for you, especially if you are new to it and you're just going to be processing a lot of information. So that's a thought.
One other thing to look at.
Sorry, Allison. Yes, Megan, popcorn style meeting that you do a proposal in one challenge, and then you do a proposal in a different challenge, and then you do a proposal in a different challenge. If you did it that way, you'd do 3 different proposals there, but you'd have to really understand 3 different challenges versus coming to one challenge and then understanding the proposals. It's very important to understand the challenges first.
And on that point, if you go back to the about, you can see the total budget for the challenge. So for example, this whole challenge only has $100,000 worth of ADA to distribute. Oh no, sorry, I don't think this is so relevant for CAs. But anyway, it's something to look at. What percentage of the total budget is the proposal asking for? I guess that does fit into the impact a bit, but is the proposal asking for 10% of the challenge budget, or is it asking for 50%, or is it asking for 100%, which would be unlikely? But how does the percentage of the total budget that they're asking for fit into the impact of their ability to deliver on that challenge?
You know what? That's a good point, because in Fund 7, with our proposal, when I joined a workshop, and that was one of the questions, or one of the pieces of information that I gleaned from that, was they basically said, if you as a proposer ask for more than 25% of the total budget, it's very likely you're not going to get funded. So like I've kept that in mind, and I don't know if that's a right way to think about it, but on the proposer side too, it's just good to understand, okay, if you go and look, there's 78 people that have applied for this challenge too, and I'm asking for a majority of it. Like, how likely am I going to get funded, type of thing,
Yeah, and Megan, you just asked an excellent question. I'm debating about whether I should have even brought that up. Whether the proportion is going to, what proportion the proposal is asking for relative to the total is really more of a question, I think, for the voters to decide in terms of prioritize it, in terms of voting for the top priorities.
Mm-hmm. That's what it should be, but that's what I was advised in a session once. So I just wanted to bring it up. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious what the others here think about the CA's role in terms of assessing the percentage of the total challenge budget. That's a good question.
What about, okay, so last fund, it was the first time I'd ever participated in voting, and I'm in a challenge and I'm going down the list and I'm like voting. And then I'm realizing, oh shoot, I just voted for a proposal that basically like 5 proposals down, they're almost the same thing, but this one's asking for this amount and this one's asking for this amount. And it almost seems like, the outcome would have been the same. And I'm like, oh, I wish I would have, what's the strategy around, do you look at all the proposals first before you vote on them, or do you vote on them as you go along?
So I would suggest we talk about voting strategies maybe at a later
voting.
date.
Yeah.
But,
Sorry.
But I will say, I think you're raising an important point for CAs. I think it's ideal, although maybe not always feasible, but it's ideal to read or at least have a general understanding of the proposals in the challenge and then assess them. I mean, ideally for myself, I would love to read every proposal and then assess them all to avoid having exactly that happen, that you assess a proposal, you think it's feasible, and then you read another one and they're doing something similar for half the cost. And if it seems like it's equally feasible, I mean, just because it's cheaper doesn't necessarily mean it's higher likelihood to be implemented. But I think it can be helpful, which is why I also think it's helpful, especially at the beginning, to focus on a particular challenge to get a real sense of what's going on across the challenge. But there are pros and cons of multiple different strategies and ways of doing things.
Alison, the question on percentage of fund a proposed ask, it's almost impossible to ask, but what it did trigger on mind, the way I tend to think about it when I'm CAing is I think of it as my money. If you're asking for my money, I've got a certain pot of money, and if you're asking me for 80% of my wallet, then I'm more than likely going to be a lot stricter and want a lot more detail and want to understand that this is going to provide value. Which may or may not be the right thing to do, but I think in general, the way I CA, I think about this as whichever proposal I'm assessing is. You're asking me for my money. Now prove to me that it's impactful. You've got a plan and a budget and all the milestones, and I know you can deliver. And you've evidenced that in your proposal. If you're not evidencing, you're saying, I've got 20 years experience of XYZ. Great, but it's got nothing to do with you delivering this proposal, and you're not going to get a good mark from me.
There's a couple in the chat here from John and both Joe, to answer Megan's question. He says, your role as a CA is to make sure the voter has all the data to take the best decision. So mentioning the percentage again, even if it already it's displayed in the voting app, is not a bad thing. You can say what you think as long as it's explained and not just an opinion. And then Joe says, humans are complex. We're building for humanity. We don't want to create a single team focus. So those are just 2 answers to your question, Allison, about what did other CAs think about mentioning the total percentage of the challenge bucket in an assessment, mentioning it in an assessment as like a reason why maybe you're not voting it as high or something.
That's a really valuable point here, because it's easy to have your opinion or your feeling. Like, I've read a few proposals that I was so excited about the idea of what they were doing. I was like, I hope this happens in the world. And also, this doesn't have, the criteria is not there. So we have the criteria there to guide us in looking at and seeing, are those things, am I finding those treasures of information displayed here in the proposal that I need to be looking for? And then I need to speak to making those connections. That's what I'm saying. I'm able to see, yes, we're trying, yes, this suits the impact because the proposer has thoroughly thought about the challenge and has offered these things specifically that are going to address it. Not, I feel like this could be a good thing to help this kind of a thing. You need to be specific and thoughtful about justifying what conclusions you've come to. And as to John's point, that might be the budget is an important part of it. So sometimes people, I remember I reviewed a while back a proposal to do a lot of video work. And I've personally done a lot of video work. I know it's very expensive, and I could tell that if they were going to get it professionally done, the budget was just not enough. And so it was my suggestion. I see this, and it's very expensive to do what you're saying. It seems like this budget is extremely low. Is this really going to be able to be done? So that those kind of like thoughtful and sort of evidence from within the proposal, evidence-based sentiments are really helpful for the voter, much more than how we feel or what we think.
Mm-hmm. Megan just asked, how do you balance, like basically on the same lines of what you're saying, how does a CA, is there any tips or tricks on how to balance and control yourself from just assessing based on the idea versus the proposal requirements, like not being so successful or great?
So I can speak to what I've done in that situation, which is where you have 3 different ratings, one for impact, one for feasibility, and one for auditability. And so if I thought the idea was fantastic, then I could give it a higher rating for impact. But if I didn't think the team could pull it off, or they hadn't explained how their work would be audited, then those 2 ratings would be lower. I think that if the idea is great, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the challenge, then I might also note that in the impact statement. And I think that to the point where the more you can articulate the why behind the rating and give useful information to the proposer, I think that's always helpful, because the proposers will or should read the feedback that you're providing.
Cool.
That's maybe a good place to sort of put a button on it, because the take some time. And when we said in the video, experience is the best teacher. So have the experience of reading some of those excellent proposals. You'll see how they have designed their assessment, not the proposals, I'm sorry, read some of the excellent assessments. And you'll see how they have designed their feedback, and you'll see that how they've taken out things from the proposal specific to the criteria. And then for the first few that you do, really just have the criteria like handy, so that you don't get sort of smitten by ideas that, is this there, is this there, is this there? Can I find this think of it like a little bit of a fun treasure hunt. Is this here? And then how can and what's not here, maybe that I could suggest too. So take the time.
What's the average, just as I don't know if we're going to close this up, but what's the average, like now that you guys have been doing this, how long does it take you to do one assessment?
I'd say 30 to 60 minutes each for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Depends how far down the rabbit hole I get of being excited about it. Because you can spend less. Sometimes I find something, but that's not specific to what's actually needed. I think that's probably sufficient. Tommy, go ahead.
Yeah, it takes much longer if you just randomly go from one to another, but if you take one challenge at a time, then you kind of get into the groove of it and you can be more efficient.
Okay, cool. I don't know, like I said, I had just joined back in. Nadia, were you thinking of closing down shop now, or should we take more questions? Or if anybody has anything to say, please. Say it now.
And I'm actually writing proposals at the same time.
I know. Everyone's like, I gotta get to my proposal writing.
I just started a new one.
Yeah, I'm about to as well, Tabby. So
Yeah,
started-
I'm gonna
started-
have to drop off in a minute, but if anyone has any questions as the CA process is starting, I would encourage you to ask them in the CA Telegram channel. But if somebody wants to ask me a question offline, just because you would feel more comfortable, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Telegram and Twitter.
Yeah, maybe the best thing is to go to exactly to Allison's point, you will find all of these people in those places. So if you go to the Discord server, if you go to Telegram, find yourself in those places. And there's a lot, we talk about a lot of things. So some of it will be, not necessarily helpful to this process. A lot of conversations go on. So just put your questions in there and people will chime in and help you get answers to them. And then second is make sure that you do the guide and that you do the workshop. That'll get you in a good start, and then ask questions as you have them and just get started. Don't feel intimidated by it. You're gonna do fine, just like everyone in here has had to start once and found success as they continued on.
awesome. Well, I see Juliana just wrote a note. She says she cannot speak, but thank you, everyone. Juliana, I think you have the recording control. So I don't know if you've turned it off or you have the ability to do that. But I would say we can turn off the recording, and now this is the after hours if you want to hang out. I know that Tommy had a question for Nadia, but we just thank everybody for coming here and having this conversation with us. It was very enlightening, even for the parts that I'm going to go back and listen to the replay because I missed so much. And I think that this is an important conversation, and it's one that is financially incentivizing, and more people should know about it and be involved. And just because you want the community to succeed and you want Cardano to, move forward in their initiative to change the world. So I think I'm going to stop talking at there. And so this is just a free for all now. We're done.
Megan, on your idea scale, turn the recording off. But Megan, on your idea mid talk for me, but I'll just answer this question now in an ongoing way. If you go to idea scale on the top right in your profile, click on your image in your profile. As it takes you to that page, scroll down, and on the bottom and on the right side there, you should see the questions that you answered in that form, and that's how you will know that you've registered.
And the other way to know is just see if you can enter a review as of 11 o'clock UTC tomorrow. And you should be able to. If you can't, for some reason, then you're not registered, and either try again or ask for help. But it sounds like you're registered.
Just to say,